Welcome, friends,
to the How To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you'd better make the most of it.
Hey, guys.
Well, hello.
Hi there.
We have a very special episode of the How To Heretic today.
Yeah. Brace yourselves. Put on your seatbelts. Sit down if you have to, because there's a big announcement.
I'm just laughing because last week when we announced that we were changing editors, and that means that we were changing the release day, patron release day, and I said, this is the biggest change we've ever made in the podcast history. Well... I am kind of a liar.
Yeah. Well, no, that was the biggest change, and now we're topping it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess we want to announce this.
None of us wants to say it. We're not going to. We're just going to leave you.
Well, I'm going to say it because I'm the culprit. So I'm letting the good people in Radioland know that your uncles, who love you very much, are going to be taking a bit of a hiatus. And there's no great way to say it, so let's just say it right out that we need a break, and not from each other. We just need a break from the work, and we will discuss it at great length in the final segment of the show.
That's right.
And I'm sorry that this might come as shocking news. I hope it isn't too upsetting. I'm sure to all of our enemies who listen, it's fantastic.
That long and growing list of enemies that we've got.
Exactly,
and we'll talk about we'll talk about this ad nauseum, but it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
It's okay. Yeah.
It's all good. We just need some time to ourselves after such a long season one, like Uncle Dan said. So yeah, that's happening.
But before that, I'm going to talk about a pretty lady who'd ended up not being so pretty.
And then I'm going to talk about a pope that got cast in a terrible movie.
Yeah, a pope in a rope-a-dope.
Nope.
Exactly. So, stick around for the final segment. We'll explain everything that's going on. And we just want you to know that Mommy and Daddy still love you. They're just going to be living in separate houses now.
This is not your fault.
That means two Christmases. That's great, right? Two birthdays.
Exactly.
So anyway, stick around. We promise we'll try to help you understand what's going on. Love you guys, and let's do a show.
Hey, Uncle Doug.
Hello.
It's during this time of pandemic. I haven't been to the salon. To the hair salon in a minute.
The salon.
I don't know. So, Doug, I don't know about you. What does your hair look like?
Well, is greasy a look?
It's definitely a look.
I'm greasy.
You got those tres flores in your hair.
That's right.
The good goo.
Yeah, I'm in a place that is locked down so tight that I probably will not be able to get a haircut for the next 10 weeks or something.
Well, Uncle Mark, I have seen you with long hair.
Yeah, it was dreamy.
You have shown me that image.
Yes.
And I don't think you should go back to that.
I thank you. I'm trying not to, but here I'm stuck. So, well, we can talk about a very fancy hairstyle today, guys. That'd be kind of fun for those of us who haven't been able to do anything with our hair for the past year. So, quick note, I will be mentioning rape in this segment. Whether you're familiar with this particular grave in the graveyard of the gods or not, you'll see by the end how rape and rape culture are integral to this character's story. It's not a graphic description, and it is between fictional characters, but listen with that advisory. So, in this here Graveyard of the Gods segment, we take a lot of pleasure in exploring and eulogizing any number of gods who died long ago because the boys and girls stopped clapping for them. and thus they faded away from Tinkerbellus no Clappamus. No one believed in them anymore. Well, today's god, or sort of god, maybe isn't all the way dead. Although I don't think modern people, quote, believe in her, like think she actually lived in a ruined temple on an island before her being alive was rudely interrupted by a man in a skirt. But her name is mentioned all the time for reasons both good and bad, as we shall see. And that name is Medusa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know why we haven't talked about Medusa before. She's fantastic. So the real first mention, in writing anyway, of Medusa that we can find was in Homer's Iliad in the 8th century BCE. Though scholars believe she existed in oral mythology for potentially thousands of years earlier. So she is very OG, original god. Her name likely comes from the ancient Greek word meaning guardian, and we'll see how her image is literally still used as a protective device to this day. According to the oldest written sources, she was one of three daughters of the very ancient Greek sea gods Phorcys and Ceto, and she lived out her life on an island called Sarpedon. Now, no modern Greek island bears that name, so there's not much agreement on which island it may be or if Sarpedon existed at all. In one of the earliest written descriptions of Medusa and her two sisters, Stheno and Uriel, by the poet Hesiod, there's a lot of Greek names I'm just going to murder in this, you guys, just like Perseus killed Medusa. But by the poet Hesiod, he said they were three women with snakes hanging from their belts. Yeah, that first description of the three Gorgon sisters, and they were the only three Gorgons. Later, Apollodotus described the sisters as having scales and golden wings, as well as huge boar-like tusks. But it wasn't until sometime in the 6th century BCE that the author Aeschylus, I can never say his name, Aeschylus, thank you, described the three Gorgons thusly: near them, their sisters three, the Gorgons, winged, with snakes for hair, hatred of mortal man. So the snakes have migrated from belts to hair over a couple hundred years. What's fascinating about mythology, or religion generally, but in this specific case, mythology, is people might grow up reading Greek or Norse myth and think the stories are fixed, that they're a static telling of a fully intact and agreed upon tale. But they're anything but. As I've shown just in the past couple paragraphs, over time they evolve and change to suit the purpose of the author and the times they live in, just like Medusa and her snake hair. She didn't start that way, but we wouldn't recognize her without her venomous coif. In fact, when I say Medusa, what version of her are you guys most likely picturing?
No, I'm 100% Clash of the Titans from the 80s.
Totally.
That's the only image I think I literally don't know if I know of another version of Medusa.
Well, I was just going to say, if you said Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion version from 1981's Clash of the Titans, you are correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though he took liberties with the myth and gave her a snake body and a rattlesnake tail, which is not something she has described as having. And furthering that theme, just 100 or so years later, the poet Pindar calls her fair-cheeked Medusa. So now she's becoming refined into something of the modern understanding of her. But it's the reworking of her origin story by the first-century Roman poet Ovid that makes her the subject of so much dialogue today. Now, the Romans had pretty much grafted their whole pantheon and religion from the Greeks in an act of spiritual plagiarism that religions the world over still do to this day. Just claim old gods or holidays as your own, maybe at most renaming things like calling Athena Minerva and Poseidon Neptune, as Ovid does here. Ovid clearly did not care for Athena/Minerva, and guess who else did not? Poseidon, now called Neptune by the Roman author. Poseidon and Athena hated each other, and their rivalry splashed all over the poor mortals they backed in their endless proxy wars. In Ovid's retelling of the Medusa story, and I'm going to revert to the Greek names here because the Roman ones make me crazy. It's a Greek story. Medusa, unlike her monstrous sisters, was an incredibly beautiful mortal woman, which also is an odd retcon since she was born of two gods, making her fully a god according to the Greek rules of divine pedigree, but whatever. So one day, Poseidon espied her in one of Athena's temples. So here's the bit about rape. So to both assuage his desire for Medusa and to defile the temple of the virgin, his enemy, the virginal god Athena, he raped Medusa in the temple. This infuriated Athena, who took out her fury on Poseidon. Oh, wait, no, she didn't. She then turned the victim into the monstrous figure of Medusa we recognize today. Anyone who knows Greek, Roman, Norse, or most of the other polytheistic mythologies will know that this variety of gods are far more similar to mortal human beings than the gods of monotheistic religions like Yahweh and Jesus, who are so remote and supernatural they're almost impossible to define. The gods of the ancient Mediterranean were pretty much just lascivious assholes. Pigs, womanizers, very rapey, very vengeful, and very occasionally altruistic. So almost exactly like our monotheistic gods now that I think about it. But seriously.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they were all
a distinction
human.
without a difference, my friend.
Pretty much.
If you're using 1981's Clash of the Titans as a resource, they were surprisingly white.
They were very, very not terribly Greek.
Well, the other thing about the gods is that though the monotheistic gods, the God of Abraham is meant to be omnipotent, and these gods just have some powers, but they're certainly not omnipotent.
Yeah.
He doesn't act omnipotent. He doesn't act like an omnipotent or even an omniscient god. He keeps getting tricked. He keeps talking about shit he can't do.
He's kind of omni-douche.
Somebody has an iron chariot, and he just throws up his hands like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
How do I beat that?
Yeah, it is interesting. And the gods, these gods really just tended to be much more like people, and they might have a power or two, but they don't have all the power.
Right.
That's
what I'm saying is I think Yahweh is the same. He just doesn't. He just pretends he's better. He pretends he's not.
Probably true, because he also sprang from a polytheistic culture, right?
Yeah.
So back to our story. So there's this guy Perseus. He thinks he's the total shit because his mom is gorgeous and his dad is a guy called Zeus. He is also both the half-brother and great-grandfather of Heracles, he who will become the greatest of Greek heroes of legend, because Zeus is his father as well. Zeus had a raging libido, all of eternity on his hands, and no concept of consent. So, like plenty of men today, right? So Polydectes, the king of Seriphus, was lusting after Perseus's hot mom, Danae. He knew he could not act on his passions with the very badass son, her very badass son Perseus around. So he gave Perseus a task that he knew he would not return from. He dispatched him to Sarpedon to kill Medusa and bring him her head. Welp, as always, the gods were listening in. Knowing this was a suicide mission, Athena assembled a team. She favored heroes generally, and Perseus in particular. She gave him her mirrored shield. A pair of magical flying sandals came from Hermes. Hephaestus provided an unbreakable sword, oftentimes also described as a sickle. And Hades gave him a helmet that made him invisible. So suddenly, the odds were very much in his favor. So he gets to the island, uses the shield to prevent Medusa from turning him into stone, and whacks her head off. Side note, Medusa was, unfortunately, pregnant after her assault by Poseidon.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it gets about to get much stranger. When her head was severed, her unborn leapt from her neck stump fully intact. One of the twins was a young giant with a sword called Chrysor. Boys, can you guess who the other twin was? Go ahead and try.
Donald Trump.
You know the name.
Super Delshanzi.
Almost. Pegasus.
Oh.
What?
Oh.
Pegasus, the winged horse.
The winged horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
The much beloved symbol of freedom and beauty and power is the result of the rape of Medusa by the god of the sea. The math checks out. Like, how many little girls have, like, Pegasus dolls and Pegasus on their notebooks and stuff, right?
Yeah, don't Google Pegasus origin.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, like, if you're going to give birth as a quasi-human woman to a winged horse,
fully grown.
I guess you go through the neck. I mean, how the hell are you going to get it out?
Any opening will do, apparently. So,
Good Lord.
now, unlike some gods we've discussed, Medusa's power did not die with her. Perseus brandished her severed head to vanquish enemies. He turned the mighty god Atlas into stone, therefore ensuring no further shrugging. And of course, he returns to Seriphus, where evil king Polydectes is about to force Danae into a non-consensual marriage, and in a deliciously ironic twist, Perseus shows the king the prize he dispatched him to deliver, the Gorgon Medusa's head, turning the king into a nice piece of statuary for the garden. At some point, Perseus had done all the vengeful calcifying he felt he needed to, and gifted the head to Athena, who put it on her aegis, which is a shield, as a protective device. That aegis can be seen in all kinds of places today as a sort of amulet known as a gorgonion. You can see it on all sorts of things like architecture in Italy, in corporate logos, and even the flag of Sicily, which very much... Yeah, you should look it up. The flag of Sicily, which looks very much like it should date the flag of the Isle of Man. A little saucy, vexillological humor for my fellow flag buffs out there. So, why do we talk about Medusa at all anymore? And why is she such a part of our collective consciousness? Sigmund Freud uses her name to describe a boy's fear of castration, especially upon seeing the genitals of a grown woman. So, but he's Sigmund Freud. What else is he going to do?
Messed up.
That has not been my experience, but fine. I'll allow it.
Yeah, you can go to Google Sigmund Freud Medusa and try to make sense of what he's talking about, because I couldn't. Poets like Percy Shelley remade her as a symbol of feminine divinity and seductive power rather than a hideous monster. She was so alluring, men couldn't look away, right? It wasn't that she was so horrific. It was that she was so beguiling.
Right.
But it's modern feminism, or fourth wave feminism, and those who hate it, that are keeping the beheaded Gorgon in our social and political discourse today. From the early 20th century on, feminists have looked to Medusa as a perfect symbol of the toxic atmosphere women must still inhabit in a world full of unenlightened and even malevolent men. Think about it. She was born who she was. She was the victim of a horrendous crime by a man of vast physical and cultural superiority. He was a fucking god. And for the crime of being raped, she carries the rapist babies to some sort of term, and another god punishes her for her own rape by rigging a game to have her killed. Is there a better metaphor for victim blaming and violent misogyny anywhere in religion or mythology? Don't answer that. That's almost all that religion and mythology are, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you'll find it if you look.
Oh, it's you don't have to dig too deep.
So was the ability to turn people to stone, was that a power of hers, or was that a curse that was given to her after
that
her
was a
rape?
curse, which meant she would pretty much always be alone.
Right, because how can you be intimate or have friendship if everyone you look at turns to a statue?
Yeah,
I mean, I think we learned the answer to that question through COVID. You just wear masks and then you're fine.
Wear a mask. So many feminists see her as not just a victim, but as a symbol of empowerment. She didn't just give up when she was raped, cursed, and turned into a monster, and it was only the trickery of yet another man, albeit aided by a very powerful woman in Athena, that brought an end to her. And even after her death, her power persisted. What the world did and does find terrifying about women remained alive in her after her death. Her severed head still turning men into stone. Interesting note, there are no legends of any woman ever having been turned to stone by Medusa, dead or alive. Argentine,
Well, that would be rude.
That would be rude. And I don't know if she went back to live with her sisters, though. That I couldn't find. Argentine artist Luciano Garbati applied to New York City and was allowed to publicly display his beautiful work, Medusa holding Perseus's severed head, across from the courthouse where Harvey Weinstein was being tried for his seemingly countless rapes and assaults on women. You can look it up. It's really amazing. The statue shows a beautiful and nude Medusa holding a sword and the severed head of the hero demigod Perseus, thus flipping the script on the legend. And yes, there was definitely criticism of such a potent symbol or attempted symbol of the Me Too movement having been made by a man, and the inversion of the rape story being a little off the mark by her holding the head of Perseus, not of her rapist Poseidon. But there was this ancient woman / monster once again at the forefront of social and political discussion. And incidentally, I think if men, someone might vehemently disagree with me, but I think if men aren't part of the conversation in the Me Too movement, it will not have really succeeded. I mean, we are the problem. It behooves us to be part of the solution as well, no? And what of the enemies of modern feminism and their relationship to Medusa? Well, name a woman, especially one that leans to the left side or has of the political spectrum or has opinions like about video games, and I've got $5 that says you can find an image of her with snakes photoshopped onto her head. But it's not limited to horrible right-wing misogynists. There are also images of Margaret Thatcher with snake hair as well, even though I think snakes would probably find a comfortable home in her famous bouffant. During the 2016 presidential race, Medusa's head was reared as a terrifying weapon once again, but wearing the face of Hillary Clinton. There was even merch available on Trump's campaign website showing him as a slovenly Perseus holding Senator Clinton's severed head, complete with hissing vipers. Remember what happened to Kathy Griffin when she held up an absurdly fake Trump head in a photograph?
Right.
You guys, it's almost as if there's a different standard for women. I don't know
Weird.
I don't know why
I don't know how you make that claim.
I don't even know why I brought it up. It has nothing to do with this segment. So remember in episode 56 we talked about Lilith? She's a super fascinating character and always cast as a villain. But if you read her story, she's also pretty much a victim. Yet she's much more nuanced, and lots of women have adopted her as a sort of patron saint and symbol of misunderstood femininity. Based on Medusa's story, but more so on how two totally different sides of an argument on the treatment and rights of women have taken her as an avatar, I think she's the perfect symbol of feminine power. Small men who both lust after and despise women see her as a monster and a terrifying idea. Women who see her as symbolic of female victimization and empowerment see her as a champion, however tragic. And weirdly, they're both right from their perspectives, right?
Right.
So that's Medusa, who I think might be, she might be, of all the Greek pantheon, she might be the god that is still discussed the most these days.
She's an interesting one. And, all I have ever heard of her, I mean, I don't, it's not like I have a whole show that delves into Greek gods or whatever. I don't know a lot about the Greek pantheon, but like, I remember hearing, all I remember about her is snakes for hair.
Yeah.
Turns you into stone. And so I just thought she was just sort of one of the monsters. And and so it is interesting to hear that, oh, no, that was all inflicted upon her.
Exactly.
And and she's meanwhile she's just a victim walking around.
This reminds me of is this reminds me of the 2011 album by that London-based punk rock band Medusa called "Can't Fucking Win."
There you go.
Did you just Google that, Doug?
I'm impressive, aren't I?
Is that true? You can't fucking win.
That's all true.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm Googling things too, but I'm just adding this Trump with Medusa, with Hillary Medusa poster to my cart.
I agree with you, Uncle Dan. I had the only version of Medusa I have in my head entirely is that 2000 or that 1981 film, which does not hold up well, by the way. But yeah, I didn't know that she had a history, and I thought she was just a monster.
Yeah,
like
she
a
was
snake
created
or
a
a
monster.
scorpion.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And in some of the earlier texts, she kind of was, but then as the myth evolved over time, she never really had a backstory other than who her parents were.
Right.
And then when she finally got a backstory, and was one of the male god's many rape victims, she's super fascinating. Poseidon never paid a price for any of this, right?
Yeah.
No, Perseus didn't pay a price for this, so. It's pretty fucked up.
Well, let's bring her back. She never left.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, go put somebody's face on a flag, and we'll
go Sicily. Uncle Dan,
Hey,
I'm trying to think of the
you
smallest.
okay? Are you having a stroke?
I was having I was stroking there. I'm trying to think of the smallest country to which I've ever been. And I think the smallest country to which I've been is Liechtenstein.
Yeah, I was there with you.
That's a tiny one.
It's very beautiful place. Very pretty place.
Stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
I was on a train that went past, I don't think through, but past Angora, which is little.
Yeah.
And
Angola or Andorra, or is it a conflation of those
Andorra.
two? Yeah.
Andorra.
Pandora.
What did I say? I don't know what I said.
You said
Anyway.
Angora, which I think is a sweater.
Sure,
Dan,
why not?
Dan took a train past a sweater
I
one
probably have taken a train past a sweater
Yeah.
at some point.
Doug,
So
what's
Andorra is what I meant.
How about you? You have any small countries in mind?
I have not only been to Liechtenstein with you. I actually have been to the smallest country in the world. I poked my foot in.
Yeah.
The Vatican City.
Yes.
And the ruler of that particular tiny little golden kingdom is someone I'd like to talk about today. At one of those many rulers.
Yeah.
There have been a lot. Yeah. I actually tried to look up a comprehensive, just for the purposes of this segment, a comprehensive list.
They're not
of
clear.
All of the popes.
It's not very clear, is it?
There's not a list. There are many, depending on who you're talking to, and there's moments where there wasn't a pope, or there were 3 popes, and this pope disqualified that previous pope. It's like, okay, fuck it.
There was that one time when there was an anti-pope.
Yeah,
that's right.
There was an anti-pope, and then they dug up a pope and put him on trial twice. And
anti-Popeye Nephi.
Yeah, I think the list I found was like over 260 or something like that.
Yeah, it's bananas. But anyway, there's one I want to talk about today. Well, your uncles, as has been vividly demonstrated over the last several years, who's in charge of our institutions matters a great deal, especially when crises occur. At the best of times, poor leadership can miss opportunities for improvement, and at the worst of times, poor leadership can lead to the unnecessary deaths of over 500,000 Americans.
Yeah,
that can happen. That just shit happens. We can hope that when these crises come, they come slowly and one at a time, such that even bad leadership has the chance at overcoming it. But there have been moments in history when massive existential crises came from so many directions and all at once that perhaps no leader could possibly navigate such troubled waters. And when the institution in question is a dictatorial blood cult led by a clutch of hysterical, sinister virgins, hat tip, Christopher Hitchens, the chances that leadership of that institution are going to be up to the task are quite slim. The institution I'm talking about, of course, is the Catholic Church, and the leader I'm getting around to referring to is Pope Clement VII.
Oh, yeah.
We all, hooray! Fan favorite.
PC7 is what I call him.
I just call him Sette.
Sette.
Papa Sette.
Pope
Papa Sette.
Pope Clement VII, as we'll see, may have actually been one of the most intelligent, erudite, and qualified men to ever lead the Catholic Church. However, he had the extremist.
Those are not qualifications they typically look for.
Yeah, that's not their bread and butter there.
Exactly. I mean, it's the bar is low, and it's like being the best Trump child. It's a low bar, right? But he had the extreme misfortune to be the leader at an inflection point in history that was the equivalent of a dozen extinction-level asteroids all careening toward the church he led at the same time.
Oh, dear. His bungling of these many crises led Clement VII to be known forever as the most unfortunate of the popes.
Oh.
And that's true.
Really?
Pronunciation,
it's an unfortunate nickname, too, so there you go.
It works on many levels. Pronunciation disclaimer here. I'm going to say a bunch of Italian words, and I'm going to say them in a terribly offensive faux Italian accent, because I can't help it. If you're offended by all that, all I can say to you is, hey, what's the matter you?
Oh, my God.
Good. Excellent. Well done.
What's the matter you?
I'm not going to do it. Don't worry. Originally named Giulio de' Medici, he was born in Florence, Italy.
Oh, boy.
He was born in Florence, Italy on May 26, 1478. His father was Giuliano de' Medici, head of, as we'll see, one of the most powerful families in Italian history, the notorious Medicis. His mother was unknown, making Giulio a damn bastard. Illegitimacy at the time disqualified one from being pope, and Giulio's creative solution to this obstacle was truly innovative. It consisted of, let's see here, being rich. So,
Yeah. It's a good one.
exactly 1 month before he was born, his father was murdered by enemies of the Medici family in what was called the Pazzi conspiracy. The Pazzi conspiracy is worthy of its own segment someday, but the rough details are totally worth mentioning because they are bonkers. The Medicis were the most powerful family in Florence at the time. The family would go on, for example, to produce 4 popes, 2 queens of France, and countless dukes, lords, princes, and princesses.
Wow.
They were not without their rivals, including the powerful Salviati and Pazzi families, as well as Pope Sixtus at the time, the current pope at the time, Pope Sixtus. These families, with a very carefully worded but unmistakable letter of support from Pope Sixtus, attempted to murder the 2 heads of the Medici family, Giuliano and Lorenzo. The attempt was during broad daylight, right after Mass. Giuliano was stabbed 19 times and took a sword through the head.
Jesus.
He didn't recover. Lorenzo,
He's okay. He's okay.
Lorenzo managed to escape, although badly injured. So the coup failed, and the Medicis were not in a forgiving mood.
I remember that because then Michael
That's right.
met with the head of the other family in that, and they thought he was a civilian.
pizza
and then
place.
He ends up killing Tessio.
there
I don't remember the whole thing, but
There was
yeah,
a dagger
I
taped
remember
to the
that.
back of a toilet tank.
It's all
It's a sword.
Time is a flat pizza pie. So roughly 80 people were executed for the conspiracy.
Wow.
Francesco de Pazzi was hanged from the windows of the Palazzo della Signora.
Jesus.
A gory scene that was reenacted by Hannibal Lecter in the 2001 film Hannibal. Jacopo de Pazzi, the head of the family, was hunted down and brought back to Florence, where he was tortured and then hanged from the same window next to the still rotting corpse of his nephew. His ordeal was far from over. He was then buried, dug up, and tossed in a ditch, then dragged to the streets and propped up against the door of Palazzo Pazzi, where his rotting head was used as a door knocker. Then he was thrown in the Arno River, but children fished him out and hung him from a willow tree, and flogged him before finally tossing whatever was left back into the river, where he was pronounced dead.
Oh, kids used to have such fun.
Hold on, I'm just writing.
This was before the video games. You know when kids had wholesome fun before video games came around?
I'm just writing down, don't fuck with the Medicis. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. The remaining Pazzi were banished from Florence. Their lands and properties confiscated. Their coat of arms was erased from public registers.
Wow.
And their name was scrubbed from any buildings or streets that bore it. Wow. Anyone named Pazzi had to take on a new name. Anyone married to a Pazzi was barred from public office. And it's possible that some 500 years later, the family name is the origin of the term patsy.
No
as
way.
in the dupe that takes the fall for a conspiracy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Mark, just like you said, the moral of the story is never go in against a Medici when death is on the line. So it was into this dynasty that Giuliano was born. He was raised by his surviving uncle Lorenzo, a.k.a. Lorenzo the Magnificent. As will become apparent, people in this period of history really liked titles and nicknames.
Can we just start calling me Uncle Dan the Magnificent?
Right.
Just for a day. I don't know.
It's
Just
so
sounds
funny,
good.
too, because he's not even the only the Magnificent in this story.
No, sure. Once one guy does it, everybody's going to start doing it.
Once you pop that bottle.
He was a fan.
Yeah, exactly. Lorenzo raised Giuliano as one of his own sons, along with his son Giovanni, who would go on to be Pope Leo X, and another of Lorenzo's sons, Piero the Unfortunate. So, I don't know why. Poor guy.
Do you choose your own thing? Is it like, or does the mayor do it? Like, you're magnificent, you're unfortunate, you're average.
Because there's so many titles in this story, I actually tried to figure that out, and I could not figure out who went around handing out titles back then. Although initially barred from high office in the Catholic Church because of his illegitimacy, he ran with many of the higher mucky mucks in the Catholic Church, and in the otherwise unremarkable year of 1492, he attended the first papal conclave to take place in the brand new but yet undecorated Sistine Chapel. Wow. Giulio was definitely it's kind of crazy how much of a nexus this moment in time was.
Huh.
And Giuliano was definitely a product of it. As a member of the aristocracy during the height and epicenter of the Italian Renaissance, Giulio benefited greatly from the opportunities that were afforded to him. He became a musician, he studied under some of the leading lights of the era, and became friends with Michelangelo and Raphael.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds a little suspicious.
Yeah,
what kind of clubs did they go to?
But not the other two Ninja Turtles?
No, the other two that came along after. He even became a soldier for a time and fought valiantly in the Battle of Ravenna. On paper, he was impressive. When his cousin Giovanni became Pope Leo X in 1513, he simply declared Giulio's birth legitimate and named him Archbishop of Florence, later ordaining him Cardinal Deacon of Santa Maria de Dominica, and then eventually Vice-Chancellor of the Church.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Sorry. So, okay, lots of people in history don't know who their father was.
Right.
Right? Because it was one and done. Bang, he's out, gone. Nobody knows. Right?
Yeah.
How does the mom pull that off?
That's a great question. I don't know. Right? It's a very good question.
Like, if she goes out for a pack of smokes, you go with her, right? It's like,
right, exactly.
Okay, I don't know how that worked.
Well, and, for a good several months before you're born, kind of everybody knows she's pregnant. Anyway,
yeah,
that's a fair point. I don't have an answer for you.
All right.
So eventually, Giulio becomes the chancellor, vice chancellor of the church, which is the second most powerful position in Catholicism. It's good to have powerful friends.
Yeah.
Under Leo, Giulio became incredibly powerful within the Catholic Church and solidified his political position over Florence. So when Pope Leo died in 1521, everyone thought Giulio was a shoo-in. Instead, through all kinds of political machinations, an unknown Dutchman named Adrian Diebel became pope, taking on the very imaginative name Pope Adrian. Yeah, Dutch dude.
Huh.
Kind of still... So because he was a Medici, there were all kinds of people that were arrayed against him. They managed to kind of splinter the vote and get this Dutch guy who nobody knew kind of came away with it.
Because all the popes for centuries were Italian, right?
Yep. Yeah, so, I don't think he was the first non-Italian pope, but he was one of the non-Italian popes.
Right.
So Pope Adrian only reigned for 20 months, and Giulio used that time to ensure his eventual election, which happened and occurred in late 1523. Taking the name Pope Clement VII, he promised to bring his education and wily political reputation to the service of the papacy. Here's the thing, though. Michael Scott was a fine leader of the Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin at the time. The biggest crises he ever faced were those zany shenanigans by Jim.
Yeah.
However, history will never know how effective he would have been if his time as branch manager had coincided with an earthquake, a plague of locusts, a paper embargo, an outbreak of cholera, an invasion and a race riot all taking place in Scranton at the same time. That's more or less what Pope Clement VII was walking into in 1523.
Oh, geez.
Here's just a partial list of the major crises that this pope inherited or oversaw during his 10-year papacy. A continent rich with gold and defended by surprisingly killable natives had just been discovered. The land grab and killing spree that ensued would scramble all the existing power structures in Europe, and the Catholic Church was no exception. So that's in the background. Yeah. It was just before his papacy began that a disgruntled German monk tacked his 95 grievances to a door in Wittenberg. As a general rule, you never want a disgruntled German keeping a list of complaints against you. And this was certainly the case here.
I don't know, man. This guy's a Medici. I know how those fucking people are.
Yeah, for real. It was in 1521, just mere months before Clement became pope, that at the Diet of Worms, the schism that would lead to the Protestant Reformation truly began because of Martin Luther. Not the kind of news you want to find out on your first day.
It's kind of amazing that Luther didn't end up hanging from a window.
Yeah,
when you think about it.
Yeah, it's true, and yeah, that's very true. It was during Clement's papacy that a very randy Englishman decided that although he wanted to have sex with pretty much every woman in his field of view, his wife was not on that list. In 1527, Pope Clement rejected Henry VIII's request for divorce from Catherine of Aragon. Let's just say that Clement grossly underestimated Henry's sex drive, leading to all of England bouncing from the church in 1532.
Yeah. Wow.
Henry VIII divorced and turned out Catherine and married his sweetheart Anne Boleyn the next year. They seemed like such an adorable and enduring couple that I stopped reading about them at that point. I'm sure everything worked out.
Everything was fine.
Yeah, exactly. She met with a similar fate as Medusa. Actually.
Yeah, this is definitely we've again accidental themes. Women being
Got the
beheaded.
themes going here.
Yeah, truly. If these massive internal struggles were not enough, it was during Clement's papacy that Europe saw more of its territory fall into Muslim Ottoman hands than at any other time in history. Under the leadership of Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottomans rolled over Central Europe all the way to the gates of Vienna. Now, I don't know, like we talked about a minute ago, how one goes about earning the moniker of the Magnificent, but if the decision is based on hat size, then Suleiman more than earned it.
Yes,
Google
he had a
him.
huge turban.
Google him and look at his hat, you mighty, and despair.
Marvel.
It is preposterously large and lovely. Clement did not have much of an army, and because he had given out so many positions and favors to members of the Medici family, he had nearly bankrupted the church, so he did not have many cards to play against Suleiman. In one of the few strokes of luck in this story, Suleiman was unable to conquer Vienna, so he never turned his magnificent hat towards Rome, which would have surely fallen. But the bad news for Clement was that Eastern Europe was now under Muslim control, and the church was basically cut off from that region and all the wealth and power that came with it. And there was an ongoing war in Europe between the Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V, and the King of France, Francis I. Both these kings wanted the support of the church on their side, and given that both these kings had huge armies and the Catholic Church did not, it was imperative that Clement chose the winning side. It won't be a surprise that, he didn't.
Oh, no.
Fearing the rising power of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, who was also the Archduke of Austria, King of Spain, Lord of the Netherlands, Duke of Burgundy, and head of the House of Habsburg. I told you these guys like titles.
Yeah.
Pope Clement sided with the French king in opposition. When the French lost to Charles, his forces marched on Rome to exact revenge. During the short siege of Rome, the on-the-ground general, Charles of Bourbon, which is now my official quarantine title, Doug of Bourbon, fell off a ladder and died. This was
What was he doing?
He was fixing a light bulb.
He was changing a light bulb, exactly.
Leave him alone.
I always put the angel on top of the tree. That's my thing. Whoa!
Well,
Do you guys see an invading horde on the way? Because I think I will.
The death of this general was a bigger deal than expected because Charles had a habit of not feeding or paying his troops.
Oh, whoopsie-doo.
Whoopsie-doo. Now these roughly 34,000 starving troops found themselves leaderless and at the walls of one of the wealthiest cities in the world. The fact that many of these troops were German Protestants was not helpful. It's not hard to predict what happened yet. On May 6th, 1527, the troops entered and sacked the city of Rome.
I think this is the incident where the holy prepuce was stolen from the Vatican.
Really?
Yeah, by a German soldier who wasn't paid. I'm assuming this is probably the same.
It has to be. Yeah,
incident,
that's got to be it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Clement's meager pantalooned forces were hopelessly outnumbered, and the city fell quickly. Some 6,000 to 12,000 people died in the sack, and many more died in the days and weeks after because of all the rotting corpses. There was an outbreak of the plague.
That'll get you. That'll happen.
Although the mob murdered, raped, and pillaged their way through the city, for the most part, they didn't burn it down. It seems that they were more interested in stealing than destroying, which is the reason that anything survived in Rome to this day.
That was nice of them.
Yeah. I guess that's...
Oh, this guy, man. It's like FDR.
I like a good invading horde with manners.
That's right.
It's like FDR. It's like, here's a depression and a World War II. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, the Italian Renaissance technically limped along for a few more decades, but the sack of Rome by the very incorrectly titled Holy Roman Emperor is generally accepted as the kind of the true end of the Italian Renaissance. Rome itself would not recover for decades. Pope Clement was captured and imprisoned by Charles's forces. He paid a ransom of 400,000 ducati to avoid execution, and then managed to escape his imprisonment in the Castel Sant'Angelo some 6 months later. While in captivity, he grew a protest beard, which is true, and then kept it until his death. Although popes were supposed to be clean-shaven, Clement didn't seem to care. and at least a couple dozen further popes would follow his example in the next 200 years and grow beards.
It's so funny how impressionable popes are. They're just, any fad they'll just go with.
After his escape, Clement returned to a Rome that was just a bit different from the one he entered at the beginning of his papacy. England and Germany were gone forever. Eastern Europe was under Muslim control. What military assets he had were dead. Rome was a ruin, and the church was bankrupt.
Jesus.
Not exactly a CV you would be very proud of.
They had most of Italy and a little bit of Switzerland, and that's it.
Exactly. On the plus side, he did commission The Last Judgment by Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel and The Transfiguration by Raphael, which are two more masterpieces than I've commissioned, so there's that. He died of stomach illness in December of 1533 after spending his last couple years trying to shore up what was left of his once dominant religion. His papacy is generally considered to be one of, if not the worst in history.
Wow.
This is,
and
of
there
course,
are some stinkers.
That's right, but this, of course, depends on who you're rooting for. I am, of course, rooting against the Catholic Church, so I say more Clements.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to say that the Catholic Church was dismantled and didn't continue to exist and do considerable damage to the world to this day, but unfortunately I can't say that.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to feel a little bit bad for this guy, though. It's not like some other dude could have possibly done better under the circumstances.
Right.
He just had bad timing.
Yeah, he
inherited
seems,
all of the worst things.
He seems like of any random pope, he was probably better equipped than most to deal with this, smart guy, educated.
Yep.
All that stuff.
Italian Renaissance star.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess the main takeaway from the story is before you accept any position of authority, look around first.
Yeah.
If you happen to see an irritated German, a horny Brit, a very well-dressed Turk, and a bloodthirsty Belgian all looking at you suspiciously, maybe take a pass.
or start a party, because that sounds fun.
Yeah, this is the problem. See, I've always said this is the problem with LinkedIn. You just get recommended for any stupid job that comes up, right? So it just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So yeah, a series of unfortunate events.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, poor Pope Clement. He's dead.
Yeah, that's true.
All
okay,
right.
let's move on
Let's
then.
move on.
Gentlemen,
Hello.
this will be the last time we do this for a minute, but we do have a new patron that we need to thank. I don't even know if he'll be charged for any shows for a minute. But he did sign up to be our patron, and so thanks to Dr. James. We really appreciate that. All you patrons, we're going to say some more on it, but please stick around, and you won't be charged for anything for shows that we don't do. So there's no danger.
Yeah.
And we'll be, we'll be letting you know how things go. But yes, still give us 5 stars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And please be sure to subscribe to the show so that when we're back, we pop up on your feed and everything. And yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do all of our segments.
Look, if you're giving 5 stars to Cocoon, just imagine how many stars you're going to give to Cocoon the Return.
Exactly.
I didn't realize there was a second one.
There is.
There is?
Oh yeah.
Remember Wilfred Brimley in Cocoon was only like 55 or something?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, he was literally younger in Cocoon than Tom Cruise was in the last.
Gee, I guess
We're going to go somewhere where you
whatever
don't
it
grow
was.
old and you never die.
That's right.
motherfucker just looked old.
Yep.
So anyway, guys, sorry it's an unusual show, but to all of you who have supported us and all of our patrons and all of everybody, love you. Thanks for everything.
Yeah. Let's close this thing out.
Yeah. Hey guys,
Well,
Yeah.
hello.
Hey, indeed.
how's it going?
Yeah.
Well, it's been a tumultuous time.
It's been a tumultuous time, and we mentioned this a little bit in the intro, but we'll go into a little more detail now. I think this being Uncle Mark, who is I and him, I've been having some. I've been tired, and and
Just a little sleepy.
little sleepy, and I had this major work-life change where I've had to, I came to Canada, which is technically a closed country. I had to go through all this shit. I had to be quarantined completely alone in a hotel room. I couldn't even leave for 2 weeks. And now I'm at work trying to make a movie, and the province is on lockdown, and it's really, really it's a stressful time. And also the boulder. Every movie is a boulder. You got to push up a hill to get it done. And this boulder is a particularly big boulder on a particularly steep hill. So I'm looking at probably working 7 days a week for the next while. And so I kind of hit a wall, and I had to let these guys know, and I probably did it a little abruptly, let these guys know that I need a break. I need some time. And so we've been talking about that. Right, fellas?
Yeah, and it's not just you. Yeah. I mean, we all lived through this last year, and it has been really hard on me too.
Well, and I think when Uncle Mark brought it up to us, both of us kind of had initially it was kind of a shocking moment of like, oh God, what are we going to do here? And to also kind of realizing, like you're saying, Uncle Dan, this has been a tough year. In so many, for so many reasons, in so many ways. So I'm there with you that I kind of had that realization that's like, you know what, I could use a break too.
Yeah, it's just it's been really hard, and we love this show, and we love our audience. You guys are so great, and so we're all pretty. I won't speak for everybody. I'm pretty loath to let go of it. So what we've decided is we are taking the break. We are we're going to spend, we're going to give Mark some time to actually make the movie that he's making and not die. Yeah. So that would be good. It would be best for Mark not to die because we
not just yet
to that load.
Because my destiny is to die in the bull ring. It is not to die.
Right. That's right.
It is not to die sitting in front of my microphone. Yes. And to be known as Mark the Magnificent in the bull ring.
Indeed. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, I think 189 episodes is a great number for season 1 of our show.
Yeah.
And I think that it's time to take a little bit and take stock and give us all a bit of a breather, and then we'll see what season 2 looks like.
Well, and I think there's some some background, because we've always tried to be extremely upfront with all of you about what's going on in our lives, and we've all of us have definitely delved into our own psychology quite a bit more than you probably wanted. But there's some other Uncle Dan and I talked a little bit about maybe just continuing on without Mark for a while. And while that would kind of, increase the workload on us, we both also had a realization, and I'm not speaking for you, Uncle Dan, just for me, that in the process of preparing this show every week, sometimes we get to have fun. And, shit like fortune cookies or the Holy Prepuce are
and it's just
silly,
joyous.
And
it's just so much, and sometimes it's just so much fun to do.
Yeah, but there are, subjects, because of what we cover, it's a necessity, that are grim. And, BYU conversion therapy and the Anthill Kids and, Blood Atonement and the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
Yeah.
The Branch Davidians, that, you spend hours and hours a week preparing for those segments. And, we want to do something as comprehensive and fun and engaging for you as we can. But man, sometimes that shit is grim.
Yeah.
And emotionally very taxing.
Yeah, it's a huge. A lot of people may not know. It differs by the sort of podcast you listen to. There are podcasts where people just shoot the shit, right? And that's fine if it's a good show. But that's not really what we do. There's a huge amount of preparation that goes into this, and we took it on voluntarily. We decided to do this. Nobody made us, and that's completely fine. But there's just a lot of work, but then there is that emotional work that Doug is talking about. And I was talking to Dan earlier, and I said, look, we're like, in a way, we're like crime scene investigators, right? Yeah. We're kind of seeing the aftermath of some terrible event. Oftentimes these are crimes. We're talking about crimes against children, and totally innocent people just being terribly hurt by this, the sewer of belief that we kind of wade through every week. And as Doug said, I think we do a lot of processing of our own religious trauma on the show, which is both good and bad, right? Like I have become more enlightened about my own experiences by doing this work, but it has come at a cost as well.
And that cost is $650.
It's $650. And look, I was having some motivational issues that during the pandemic, during the lockdown, we're still in the pandemic, but when your Uncle Dan and me were stuck at home for basically a full year, and poor Doug had to try to go out in the world and keep his business going. I was having some real motivational problems. I think we all were. But then we would get these letters from you guys, and these emails, and all of a sudden this wind would come back into our sails, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, Doug, look at this email. Oh my God, Dan, look what this person wrote in," and it was huge. And so yes, we have there is an emotional, for lack of a better word, spiritual cost to doing the work like this. But then once in a while, you guys come through with this huge amount of emotional lift for us, and it reminds us of why we got into it in the first place.
Yeah.
But
I think that's the thing, is that this is we're talking a lot about the emotional toll that this has taken on us. It's not like it's a bad thing. No, like that was a price that we paid for something wonderful. Yeah, which is our connection with you guys, and which is our ability to put out a show every week that people seem to enjoy, and we get to hear from them, and on rare occasions, and hopefully after the pandemic, we get to meet some of you. Yeah, and that's fantastic. So this pays us. And also, you guys give us some of you give us your money, which is amazing too.
That was so helpful during this, insanely long period of unemployment and uncertainty. You really have no idea how helpful that was. Yeah, materially and as an emotional support as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is not us saying like, you guys, you're just taking, and this has been insanely hard for us. No. It's just that right now, what we're saying is we genuinely do need to take a break, and that's going to be. I think it's going to be okay for everybody. I don't know. Some of you write into us if you're not going to be okay.
Yeah, we're still look.
We'll find you another podcast.
You can still get a hold of us. You can still everything's still going to work. The emails will still be there. The Twitter will still be there. All that stuff because it's the machinery that's going to kick back in when we get going again, right?
And if you're our patron, stick around on Patreon. We won't, obviously, since we're not putting out a show, you won't be charged anything. So there's don't worry about that. Just everybody, hit subscribe on whatever thing that you're listening to us on, just so that when we come back, you're sure not to miss it, because believe me, we've been coasting for a while. We come back from a break, we're going to be good.
It's going to be hot like a pistol.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say,
good. Our back catalog is getting filled in on YouTube. So if you miss us, there's almost 500 segments up on there now. So there's plenty of bullshit from the past you can still enjoy. I love going to the back catalog and just clicking randomly on stuff and listening to old segments. It's a lot of fun. So we're, podcasting is forever, guys. We're in the ether.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Doug.
and I wanted to say too, just I know that for many of you, a surprising amount of you, the podcast has been very meaningful during this last year that's been so hard. Well, I know that because you've told us. We've gotten so many letters from people that said that this podcast had a lot of meaning for them during this hard time and that they look forward to it. And I did too. There was quite a period of time, especially at the beginning of quarantine, when it was so terrifying and there was so much uncertainty that this was, doing this podcast was for me like a lifeline. It gave me, I looked forward to it. It gave me something to think about that wasn't the pandemic. And because, every day it was Groundhog Day, sometimes it was the only way I knew that a week had ended.
Yeah. Right.
Was because we were doing the podcast. So, we pushed it through the pandemic as far as we could. And like Dan said, this was something we took on voluntarily, and it's been a joy. But we need a break. We need to take a minute.
You know how if you've got like this huge task ahead of you, or you've got you're running a race. We were talking about this like a marathon, and somehow you can run 26 miles. But once you cross that ribbon, you can't make it another 10 feet, and that's kind of, we're not out of the pandemic yet, and we're not out of all the stress yet and all that
Truly.
shit. But it Trump is gone. There's 3, maybe 4 fucking vaccines, which is unbelievable. Sane people are getting them. Some sort of normalcy is on the horizon soon, I think. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like I'm looking back on how much tension and stress I just experienced by being alive in America during the past 15 months, and it was a lot more than I thought. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I've hit the ribbon at the marathon, and now I'm just figuring out how I'm going to get to my car. Am I
right?
Get the next 15 feet. So
well, yeah, I'm with you. We've said this many times on the podcast that the most important part of the term post traumatic stress is post. That you got to get through the crisis before you can truly start to process it. Yeah. And like you said, we're not out of the woods entirely, but there is hope on the horizon. All 3 of us are fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
And hopefully as many listeners as possible are in the same position.
Atheist comedy podcasting is essential work.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
We're frontline workers.
That's right.
We are so unbelievably lucky to be in the ears of frontline workers somehow. Yeah. People with educations that work at hospitals.
But it seems like at the very least the crisis is stabilizing, if not improving. And I finally have a little bit of bandwidth to start processing what we've all been through. And, and to that point, and regarding this podcast, I just kind of feel like, and this has all kind of come fairly suddenly, but I need some me time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need some time to not think about these issues and not think about kind of sometimes the worst things that people can do to each other, and take a break, take some time, fill in that space. But, this podcast has been such a pleasure and an honor to be a part of and to do. That but we've done it without missing a week for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? This is an invitation for you guys too. Take a break, everybody. Let's all just take a break. We're doing it. Why don't you listeners at home just take a break? I don't know what you need a break from. I mean, you're getting one from us, but like, let's just do that. We'll call it the big break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, I didn't want to do this, and I was putting it off, and I was putting it off, and I was putting it off. And really my work circumstance kind of forced my hand, and I was just dreading having to tell these guys. And then the minute I did, I know I was really going to disappoint them and upset them, and but there was this huge sense of relief, It's like, I just need some air. And I need to get through the next, many weeks of my job intact. Right. And I just think as you guys were saying, it's after you got over the initial kind of what an asshole, you're both feeling like, you know what, I could use some air.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's not beat a dead horse. kids, write into us if you have any questions. We're still around. We still exist.
Yeah.
And we'll inform you. We'll try to be informative in terms of like when new plans arise. Follow the Twitter feed. Follow wherever you might follow us there, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, and we don't have any hard and fast date yet. We don't know exactly when things are going to kind of get to normal enough to kind of come back, but you will obviously be the first to know.
Yeah,
it'll just so that you know though, it'll be a couple months at least, at bare minimum, a couple months, but probably a little more than that.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure, the reason we had this discussion here with you all today is we wanted to make sure you understood that this isn't, there's no other reason for this. There's no falling out. There's no
illness.
There's no illness.
Yeah.
We're all good. It's just been, a long, crazy, strange journey to get to this point. With all of you, and
these guys are just both jealous of my RV, and they're mad.
That's right.
That's what it is.
Uncle Dan needs to hit the road with his RV.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, all right. Well, I guess we've talked it through, fellas.
Yes,
yeah.
Right.
And like Dan said, we're still here. If you have issues, complaints, or ideas, send them. We still want to hear from you guys, and then we'll have a treasure trove to play with in the future.
Yep.
All right. Love you, everybody.
Lots of love. Thank you for your understanding, and we appreciate every single one of you.
Yeah, I love you guys. Well, friends, that's it for Season 1 of The How-To Heretic.
Yes. Hey, we'd still love to hear from you. Send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com and tell Uncle Mark how mad you are at him.
Please do. And you can also tell me on Twitter. I will remain on @howtoheretic. You can find me there.
And, thanks to our patrons who've been the wind beneath our wings low these many years. We love you. Stay patrons.
Yes, and thank you to either Hammond Chamberlain and or Cody Layton for editing the show.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in.
See you soon,
see you
friends.
when we see you.
See you
Love
soon.
you so much. Thank you.